it's important for us to know that fathers are the most endangered species on the planet today. We are the most endangered species simply because the subject of fatherhood is not taught and it's not discussed, right? And especially in this age of Gen Zs and Gen Alpha, when you ask a typical person who is a father, right? Everybody talks about a superhero, who never cries, who's got 6 packs, 9 digits earner, someone that owns like 7 estates, so which means too much money. Someone who is perfect, he never falls short, he never lies, he never cheats, he never does anything wrong. He flies first class, but ownership of a private jet will be the added advantage, right? Can flaunt a child, right, on social media, has amazing watches, super executive, an award winner, he wins man of the year, like maybe my brother Opayemi, who is also godly, so they won the 6 pack of, Cristiano Ronaldo with the godliness of maybe Baba Adeboye, kind of. That's the kind of father everybody wants. And so you realize that there is a cry for fatherhood across the globe. As a matter of fact, when you see an adult, and I see a lot of adults all the time looking for a father figure, you will know that there is that imbalance because a lot of people, even though they pretend as, I don't need a father figure, I don't need a man in my life, you could literally see through their trauma that there is the absence of a father figure. And so you might want to ask yourself, why would a father figure be that important that makes people, that makes the absence of a father devastating for a child, that a child gets into trouble, gets into addiction? They're looking for something because that void is there. Why is it that fatherhood is so important? The first thing you need to understand is that the word fatherhood is the Hebrew word ab, which means source, right? But then the source is not defined, which means it's open-ended, and that means that you can be a source of joy or you can be a source of pain. And so and that's why from the Ab you find Ab Shalom, which means the father of Ab plus Shalom, which is father of peace. You find Abraham, Ab, father of nations, right? And so the Jews usually, when you find the word Ab, it means source. So you want to ask yourself, what type of source are you? And then, whether you're a source of succor, you're a source of direction, you're a source of inspiration, or you're a source of pain. Now, many fathers are source of pain, not because they go out of their way and write that I'm going to be a source of pain. Many of them is trauma response. And so instead of the world to be empathetic, what the world does is the world is judgmental. So you will hear is a bad man, is a bad father, forgetting that he can actually be a bad man and be a good father. A lot of people don't know that. And so because our time is short today, I'm just going to, usually, the way I do it, I'll talk about fatherhood through the prism of the Lord's Prayer. And so the Lord's Prayer starts with our Father, which means our source. Now, it didn't say my father. What it means is that the role fatherhood transcends beyond your immediate family. It moves into every, which means you are not here to father your only children, the children that come out of your loins. You are here to provide fatherhood, to be a source to an entire generation, which would include children who are not necessarily born by you. So our father, which means collective source. So how many people look up to you and say, that's my father, right? I have quite a number of adopted children. I have quite a number of adults who even call me father. And that's why I cringe when someone says I'm a father to 1,000 people, because fatherhood is always very, very dangerous. It's time consuming. It takes a whole lot out of you. So our collective source, you need to know as a man, as a father, that your role goes beyond your immediate family. Number two, who art in heaven. That talks about domain. It's not enough for you to be a source. You need to have an address. What it means is you need to understand what sector, what area, what sphere of life you have been sent to. Our ultimate Father is in heaven. So whenever we're looking for God, we know we can find him in heaven. Where can they find you when they're looking for you? Where art thou? Are you in the club, drinking beer? Have you drunk yourself to stupor? Are you spirit-led? And I mean the spirit called beer or something. Or are you in a particular sector making a change? Are you in tech? Are you in finance? Are you in the legal department? Where exactly is your domain? When we're looking for you, what can we say you're doing? Where can we say you're adding value to? 3, hallowed be thy name. That talks about credibility. We always say that when your name or your character is lost, everything is lost. Hallowed be your name, which means the credibility of your name. As a father, when your name is mentioned, what do people say about you? If young people talking and they mention your name, when you mention Abacha, you mention Gaddafi, you mention Mobutu Sese Seko, you mention Adolf Hitler, you mention Joseph Stalin. What emotions do those names elicit? Abacha, you know, everybody thinks of a guy who was brutal and killed a lot of people, you know, Idi Amin Dada. What comes to people's mind? And then you mention some other names and you smile. You know, you think of, you know, the feeling, how they made you feel. So you need to know as a father that everything you're doing, I mean, like we talk about digital footprint, you also have a fatherhood footprint that everyone you come in contact with, when they think of you, do they cry? Do they smile? Do they remember you for the value you added? Or they remembered you for the pain that you caused? So what is the credibility of your name? Now, it talks about thy kingdom come, which talks about influence. As a father, you need to provide influence to your children. And that's why you cannot say, I'm introverted. No, you need to go out of your way because leverage is part of the role of a father. You need to be there to say, oh, your child needs something. I know this person. I have this network. I can move mountains to ensure that this happens. That talks about influence. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. That talks about purpose and alignment, which means as a father, you leave, a good man leaves inheritance for his children's children. You have a will for your children, something you're going to leave behind for them, but that will must be in alignment with heaven, right? That will be done on earth as in heaven, which means that alignment with the ultimate father, the divinity, is actually a prerequisite for being an excellent father. And so a lot of us as men were out of touch with the ultimate father because many of us didn't also have a good fatherhood experience. And so we're just trying to learn. We're trying to figure out what does it take to be a super dad, right? And so there's got to be alignment, purpose and alignment between heaven and earth. Then it talks about give us this day our daily bread, which means a father needs to provide. Now, if you read that place from the original context, what it actually means is give us today what will be sufficient for the rest of our days. And that's why I always pray for fathers that God will give to you today what you will need for the rest of your days. It could be an innovation, it could be an invention, it could be an intellectual property, it could be, you know, some deals, but you know what it means when you don't have to bother about house rent, to pay a mortgage, to do this and that, right? So God will give you this, they will be sufficient for the rest of your days, which means a father provides. It talks about provision. Then it talks about forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those trespass against us. Fatherhood is about forgiveness, and that's why we can't be bitter that they celebrate us once a year. We can't be bitter that they don't even greet us. Maybe you have woken up now, your children are not saying Happy Father's Day on the only day that is meant for father. You can't be bitter. A forgiving heart is a heart that is willing to forgive before the offense is committed. And that's why if you look at the word forgiveness, you will find for, which means before, you will find gift. So again, forgiveness is a gift that you have to give even ahead of time. And so it means that your children will fall short. There are times they will not appreciate what you have done. You paid school fees, but then they defer to their mom. You can't be bitter. You've got to learn to forgive, because if you are the kind of father who always remind your children of their wrongs, you are going to destroy their esteem. You're going to destroy their confidence, and then you become susceptible to all sorts of things, which means you must be a lover. Then it talks about lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Let me tell you, there are things you do as a father that will lead your children into temptation. If you don't provide emotional support, you have a girl, you don't tell her you love her, you don't tell her she's the most beautiful girl in the world, you are likely going to leave the room to lead her into temptation, because the mechanic down the road or the funny guy down the road that wants to get between her thighs will tell her how good she was, and to retain that she's going to spread her laps, right? If you're a father, your child needs something and you don't take contentment, you don't provide support for them, you make them susceptible to a situation where boys get into yahoo, girls get into prostitution, and they even bring the money home. You're not asking, where did you get this car? You are feeding from whatever they're bringing. So fatherhood, we must provide an environment where contentment is modeled, where your children own that contentment, and where they are not led into temptation. And so you provide a secure atmosphere and then deliver us from evil, which talks about you being a savior. This is House of Saviors, which means you are the ultimate savior. You have to be able to preempt, what can go wrong. You have to proactively think ahead for your family, for your children, and look at the future and say, this is likely what is going to go wrong. This is likely what is going to influence them wrongly, and create a strategy to mitigate against it. So here are the questions today as I wrap up this. Are you a collective source of inspiration to many? What is your domain? Do you know? What is the credibility of your name? And if your name is already messed up, God can restore your name, right? Thy kingdom come. What's the level of influence? What's your purpose? And are you aligned with God? Are you able to provide? If you can't provide, God will give to you today what you will need for the rest of your days. Are you able to forgive? Are you able to love unconditionally? Are you able to secure your family? And can you save your family? As we celebrate Father's Day, 2 questions you need to ask. What must I stop? And what must I start? Our world is in dire need of true fathers who can be a source of hope and inspiration to the younger generation. If there's any time we need to stand, it is now. Because you see all kinds of fights, all kinds of abuses and insults online, simply because people have not had a good experience of fatherhood. May you be that father that generations will look up to and says, our father who is in the tech space, or our father who is in the legal space, or our father who is in governance. Hallowed be your name. So happy Father's Day to all our fathers. Thank you for all you do. We pray for you. We love you as House of Saviors, and we wish you all the best. Okay, I'll yield the mic back to Oluwaseun. Thank you very much for having me as we continue with the meeting.
Thank you so much, PF, for that. What do our fathers need to start doing? What do they need to stop doing? Because the absence or the absence of fathers, or either their misdeeds or deeds, that are impacting negatively on the children, has a great impact. I pray that God will grant our fathers more wisdom, because a lot of work, like PF has said, the world is upside down. A lot rests on our fathers and mothers too, right? But we're talking about fathers today. The only one day that we have dedicated to you, we will use it and flog it well. Okay, so welcome once again to today's session of House of Saviors. We are talking about a female matter, but we are not erasing fathers from it, because today is your day. It's still about fathers. It's about, the topic we're talking about today is about the female gender born of men, right? So men are still in the picture, so you guys can be happy, right? So today we are talking about menopause, and we have no other person but Dr. Mojisola Aderonmu to, trash it out for us. Can we have Dr. Mojisola Aderonmu being pinned while I tell us about, who she is? She's a graduate from University of Lagos. She graduated 2008, where she obtained her MBBS degree. Because of her very strong passion for women's health, her postgraduate residency training was in O&G, that's obstetrics and gynecology, at the Lagos University Teaching Hospital, Idi-Araba, which she concluded in 2018. She obtained her fellowship awards in O&G from both the West African College of Surgeons and the National Postgraduate Medical College of Nigeria. She's a consultant O&G with a passion for maternal medicine, ultrasonography, and the management of infertility. She passionately supports causes for the well-being of women and girls. She spends her free time engaged in advocacy and volunteering. She's the executive director of the Amira Feintola Foundation, a non-profit organization that awards academic scholarships to deserving secondary school students. Thank you for that, madam. She has held several leadership positions over the years, and she's presently the medical director at the Medical Arts Center, Ikeja, Lagos. please join me to warmly welcome Dr. Mojisola Aderonmu. You are welcome, ma'am.
Good afternoon from Nigeria. Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure.
You're welcome. You have the floor.
Yes. Thank you so much. That was also a powerful presentation by PF. Thank you for sharing. I want to first of all say a big thank you to Dr. Dami, a colleague and friend from way back medical school who put a call across to me, and also to Miss Lawrence for reaching out. I don't know if I should share my slide or I should just speak.
Whichever is more comfortable for you, please.
Okay, let me see if I can do that. Okay, great. Okay, so I think that's good. Yeah, so I understand my speech is going to be short so that we can have time for other things. And I'll be speaking on menopause. So for women, most women would have, and I like the way Mrs. Sheon puts it, women born of men. Well, this day and age, we have to really specify. So I would say that my talk is going to be for cis women who were born women and have grown as women. We will leave out the other definitions of womanhood. So my talk is going to be looking at menopause in women who were born women and have stayed women until a particular age, a particular time of their life. For women, we have what we call the straw stages, and it has to do especially about reproduction. So in a woman's life, the girl child conceived in her mother's womb is born with all the eggs that she's going to use throughout her lifetime. So when a woman is pregnant with a female child, by 7 months, that female child that is in her belly has about 7 million potential eggs. By the time she's born, there's been a lot of attrition, and that number is about 2 million. By the time that female child reaches puberty, so let's say she hits puberty at about 11, 12, 13, it's down to way less than 2 million. In the total lifetime of most women, they end up ovulating. Ovulating means that they release one egg from the ovary every month. They end up ovulating about 500 eggs, give or take. So most of the woman's lifestyle, most of the woman's lifetime, her ovaries are active. They are doing something. They had eggs, the eggs reduced in number. So at a point in time, they are quiet. At a point in time, they start to function. At a point in time, every month they release an egg. And it also gets to the point in time where all the eggs are depleted. Now, all of this activity around reproduction has to do with hormones. So there are certain hormones that are produced by the body, and they have like a relay effect. So if we look at, if we watch tracks and you have 4x100 meters, so you have the first leg has a baton, the baton has to go to the second leg, the baton has to go to the third leg. If they drop the baton at any point in time, they get disqualified. So we have something like that in the woman's body. And we have certain hormones that are released from what we call the higher centers in the brain. And we have those hormones, when they are released from the brain, they go around the body. And when they go around the body, their target organ is the ovary. So when they have an effect on the ovary then releases another hormone or some other hormones. And those hormones that are released now make sure that the ovary grows a particular follicle, that follicle grows enough to be released. You also make sure that at the time that the egg that is in the follicle in the ovary is being grown, the womb lining is also responding, such that if sexual intercourse and fertilization occurs in that menstrual cycle, the womb lining is ready to receive the potential human being that is formed. Now, this goes on for what we call the peak reproductive period, which is usually between the age of 15 to 45. In some populations, you can extend that age to 49. But 15 to 45 is what we use in Nigeria. So that's the peak period. That means the ovaries are responding as they should. They are receiving the baton from the brain, and they're also passing the baton over to the ovaries and the womb, and everything is going well. Now, as the woman grows older and the amount of eggs in her ovaries begin to reduce, she begins to experience what I would describe as hitches. You know, if you're on an internet call and there are some periods where either the Mbps drops, you can literally see the lag. So something like that can happen with the ovaries. So the hormones are not high enough in quantity to ensure that the ovaries are responding. So she may not ovulate that month, and then by the next cycle, the next month, everything may be fine. So that is the late reproductive age. So it's not as hitch-free as the peak reproductive period. Then when we get to the menopausal transition, menopause itself is a retrospective diagnosis. It means that it has passed before you can say, oh, that was menopause. And that's because before we can make a diagnosis that a woman has attained menopause, then she mustn't have seen her period for 1 full year. And I always like to emphasize this because a woman will come in and say, oh, I saw my period last year. Maybe she saw it in November and we're in June. She hasn't yet attained menopause. So if she saw it in November and she's speaking to me in December, I can make a diagnosis that, oh yes, this woman has attained menopause. And this is important because for women who have been on contraceptive methods that ensure that they don't have regular menses, if as a gynecologist, I pull out that contraceptive method, she may definitely end up with a retirement baby because she hasn't attained menopause. So there's still the chance that her ovaries are functioning. And I've in practice have seen that happen, And the woman was like, oh, but, and I was like, no, that wasn't it. It was your contraceptive. So those are other factors that we consider before we say, oh, this woman has attained menopause. Because if she's on a contraceptive method that has made sure she's not menstruating, until that contraceptive method is out and she's on another type of contraceptive method, I can't say that she's menopausal. So those are some of the things that we look into before we arrive at that diagnosis. Now, it's retrospective. That means 12 months had passed from her last menses. Now, it's a pivotal period in the lives of most women because, they are used to the reproductive period. And at this point, they are facing, if they've had all the children they want, yes, they're like, okay, now I can rest. If, they haven't had all the children they want to, their anxiety also gets higher. Like, oh, menopause has come and I'm still waiting and waiting, So for women, it's different strokes. Now, for those who have had all their children and they are not on any contraceptive methods affecting their menses, they easily would know that, oh, this is when my period came last. For those who have been on contraceptive methods like that, usually we have to change it to something else so that we can fully say that this woman has attained menopause. Of course, there are other ways to evaluate it. We can do blood tests to look at the hormone levels. We can also do a scan, look at the womb itself. Those things will help us to make a judgment. But in terms of a classical definition, it still revolves around the menstrual flow. In the early menopause period, Let me skip my slides. Yeah, so this is a peak reproductive period, 15 to 49. And I already spoke about some of the things we do there on another call. Now, in the menopausal transition period, you have the early and the late periods, and there are variable lengths of time. For some people, it's 6 months. For some people, 1 year. And that is in terms of the symptoms they may have. A commonest symptom is hot flushes. So everybody is fine in an environment, temperature is okay for every other person, but the woman keeps feeling that she's hot. And that's because there's some dysregulation in the brain center where temperature is controlled. Our temperature is controlled from our brain. And so because of this period where the hormone levels are going down, one of the core female hormone is estrogen. That dysregulation of temperature comes up. So for most women, it may be how will I put it now, a conflict point, So if she sleeps in the same room with her husband does not like AC. AC is fine, and then she comes inside. She's like, this place, so I'm feeling hot. And the man is like, unless you live in the northern hemisphere. If you live in Lagos, the person will be like, I believe we moved to Canada and I did not know. So those kind of things, if the man is aware that that's a period of life that she's in, it's easier to accommodate that. So husband may end up having to use extra duvets and all. Irritability is one of the psychological symptoms. It can't be fully explained by the lack of estrogen, but it's something that we've seen: irritability, anxiety, hot flushes. The other physical symptoms are things that would come up if the woman especially has been going for regular checkups. So in terms of length of time, some women are able to transition in a shorter period than some other women are. Support, that's in terms of mental support, also helps. For women who have close friends in the same age group, they can discuss it, find support, and say, oh, this is what I did, and all of that. Wellness checks helps because at that age, some women will have other coexisting medical problems: hypertension, diabetes, gastric reflux disease, things that are already troubling them, that the physical and psychological symptoms of menopause may now make things a bit more difficult for them to cope with. But if they go to their doctors and, the doctor knows, okay, this is what is going on, some of their medications may need adjustment, and so that can be done. Contraception is key, like I said, so that if the plan was not for a retirement baby, they don't end up with one. That's maybe difficult to explain. Post-menopause. So menopause is what we call ground zero. That's no menses, that's day zero. Post-menopause, the early part of it usually lasts about 4 years. And during these 4 years, most women have built up all the bone strength they'll have during their peak reproductive age group, 15 to 45, in their diets, in their supplements, exposure to sunlight, vitamin D, exercise to improve their bone strength. So once and estrogen helps to drive this. So once menopause has set in, estrogen, that is the driver, is now withdrawn. So they have to be more deliberate about their diet, their exercise, and supplements that they take, so that they're able to retain the majority of their bone strength. And in medical science, women tend to lose their bone strength at a faster rate than men. So at the age of 75, most women would have lost majority of their bone strength. Equivalent of that would be in a 90-year-old man, because they retain their bone strength longer. So and that is why most women who have attained menopause tend to have bone fractures, either their hip fractures or their thigh fractures, and it has to do with the density of their bone. So diets high in milk, calcium, vitamin D, exercise. It doesn't have to be like you're planning for a marathon. regular 30-minute walk in the mornings and evenings. If you do that 3 to 5 times a week, that helps to improve bone strength. For those who live in temperate regions where there isn't so much sunlight, vitamin D supplementation can help with that. Those who live in tropical regions, we have an abundance of vitamin D from our sunlight. And in actual fact, vitamin D itself can help with some, mood, irritability, some unexplained symptoms. When vitamin D levels are low, some people have a lot of mood issues, unexplained weakness, tiredness. So our sunlight also has some medicinal factors in it. For some women in the early parts of menopause, that sudden withdrawal of the hormone estrogen is a lot. And like I said, it has some psychological impacts too. For some women, they can't cope with that sudden loss. And so we can do, as gynecologists, we can do some supplements that have similar substances to estrogen. So we call them phytoestrogens. And the supplement business is $1 trillion business. So there are so many supplements that have come into play. They have some little amounts of I want to use the word herbs, but use it with a lot of responsibility, plant-based estrogen kind of things. And so if they use that, it can help them to tide over. However, they also have to be very careful because some of those supplements can interact with any other regular medications that they may be on, such like those who are on blood thinners. They may not be able to use some of these supplements. Hormone replacement therapy means that we begin to give little amounts of the estrogen hormone back to that woman. So yes, it's going to, cancel the menopause because she's going to go back into having regular menses. But we give it at low doses so that we can eventually tail it off. The woman is not going to be on it for life. So eventually she's still going to go back into that menopause, but it's going to be, it's like if you start at 15, you reduce it to 13, you reduce it to 10, you reduce it to, 7, until she's able to cope with the minimum dose, and then eventually we can stop it. So that's what we call hormone replacement therapy. It helps with the physical symptoms, bone strength, psychological symptoms, hot flushes. It really does help, and it's been able to help many women cope with that sudden arrival of menopause in their lives. After about 4 years, most women are able to actually thrive without any symptoms from menopause having set in. And so they enter the phase of late menopause. And so in the late menopause, they are doing their diet, exercise, supplements, wellness checks, doing omugo, joining different societies, and they are actually be able to function. They're able to function. Quality of life is great once they've been able to transition through that early post-menopause state. And with these few words of mine, I would like to say thank you for inviting me. I am open to questions. And when I speak, try not to be too exact about medical stuff so that it doesn't look like I'm in a classroom medical school. So I'll be happy to take any questions you have. Thank you very much for the invitation.
Thank you so much, Dr. Aderonmu. Thank you so much. So House of Saviors, you have heard it all from our experts. Do we have people with questions in the house? Please let us ask questions. So men, please ask questions for your wives. We are bringing you into the picture again. It's not about us. So it's a female topic, but hey, it's your day. Right. So do we have any men that, just wondering, this menopause, what is it? Doctor has explained it, but do you still have questions? Women in the house, do we have questions? Doctor, may I have a question? So this is natural, right? It's a natural phase in our lives. Is there anything that we can do to like shorten it? Or no, you know, let's say you mentioned 49, right? Is that something someone can do to like elongate so that you keep, you know, menstruating, so that the menopause delays? Is there anything like that? Or it comes quickly? You know, because some people after a while, they get tired. You know, they're like, when will this menopause even come? I beg, I don't tire, you know, I don't need it anymore. Just like you said, there are two sets of people who are done with having children and people who still hope to have children. Is that something to like adjust what God has planned? You know, human beings, we're always trying to intervene one kind.
Oh, well, I usually say that whatever knowledge we have, God opened the window, and that's why we're able to step into that light. So yes, there will always be one or two ways the devil may try to corrupt it, but yeah, usually it's God that opened that window. So I try to stick to natural menopause. There's what we also call surgical menopause. That's if we actually do remove those organs, the womb itself or the ovaries during surgery for different reasons. As gynecologists, we may need to do that. And let's say we're doing that in a woman who is before 45. So we've rendered her menopausal, but not at the time she would have. Yes. So there are usually different reasons why we do that. And if a woman is going for surgery, those conversations would have been had with her and the attending surgeon. So that's surgical menopause. There's also what we will call, it used to be called premature menopause, but the terminology is different now. Premature ovarian insufficiency. It means that some women, they get to that natural menopause before 40. Sometimes it's due to genetics. You know, you find that, oh, that's how my sister was, that's how my mother was, that's how my aunt was. So there's a genetic component to that. For some people, it may also be that they've been exposed to either radiation or chemotherapy for cancer treatment, or even maybe from their jobs. And that's why those who work with radiation, they usually have to wear protective gear. They may need to have timeouts if they should have a counter that says, oh, your level of exposure to radiation is this much, and so you have to take time off. So that's exactly. So those are some of the things that can impact on menopause itself. But in terms of what to do to slow it down or to prevent it from happening, there's usually nothing the woman can do. However, if she has attained menopause, I can see a question there that says that can a lady conceive during menopause? Yes. So my regular job these days is fertility medicine. So, and yeah, I've had to, you know, treat women who have attained menopause 10, 15 years, as long as they are younger than the age that we can put the embryos back into their womb. In Nigeria, by guideline, that's 54. So I've had 50-year-old clients. I've had 2 clients that were 53, 8 months, 53, 10 months. So I took the leap of faith with them. And so they were pregnant before their 54th birthday. So they met the guidelines, you know, technical issues. Yeah. So yes, we do reverse the menopause. We give the same hormones. Hormones are what make us, you know, menstruate. We use hormones as well to reverse the woman out of menopause, and then plan her treatment, fertility treatment. And so yes, she can conceive. So yes, she technically had attained menopause, but she was able to get fertility treatment that was able to achieve that. I can see PF asked the question, is HRT safe? Yes, HRT is safe.
Can it lead to cancer?
No, so let me give the scientific answer to that. For women who are going on HRT, they would have had comprehensive evaluations. So if there's any history, either family or personal history of cancers, we would need to know, are those cancers hormone sensitive? And so even when anybody has surgery and cancer has been removed or treated, there are further tests that are done to know if they're sensitive to hormones, if they are not, what hormones and all of that. So those kind of women will not qualify for HRT. If they have a high risk for having blood clots, they also wouldn't qualify for HRT. So HRT is not just given to every woman who says, oh, this is what I want. She has to actually have met the qualifications for her to have HRT, but HRT helps. In our part of the world, we are used to saying just, push through the suffering, the hot flushes, the all of that. But in the Western part of the world, if they do qualify, we do. Recently, at least in the last 5-10 years of practice, more and more women here, I live and practice in Nigeria, in Lagos, more and more women are beginning to say, oh, I want to try this HRT. Do I qualify for it? This is my medical history. This is my health history. Is there anything that will put me at risk? So that it makes it easier for me to cope with this menopause of a teen. Yes, so it doesn't cause cancer unless there's a background risk that predisposes that woman to a hormone-sensitive cancer. Is there a connection between...
There's a question that's, vision and menopause.
Vision and menopause. No, there's no connection. So if there's a visual problem, the person has to see the ophthalmologist. It doesn't have to do with menopause, no.
Okay, someone once asked me, doctor, that, or she told me that there was a time she was getting very angry, irritable, and all that. And it was later on she found out that it had to do with menopause. Is that true?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So I'd mentioned during my short talk that irritability, anxiety, mood swings, they're all part of it. So once the woman is aware of what is likely, even she may in advance inform her family members that, oh, I'm in this period of my life. It's not me, it's the hormones.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so you see, if the family knows, it gives you grace. They know that it's not personal. Exactly. So they may be like, mommy, okay, I think you should take time out now, or my dear, don't worry about the food, we'll be fine. Just so it gives the family members grace to support them through it. And then, if it's the temperature.
Our men, are you listening? Men, listen, oh.
And during the periods of, temperature dysregulation, maybe all of you are watching a movie together, and then suddenly mommy comes and say, this place is too hot, this one, and they're like, mommy, this place we are cold though. If you already know, it may be like, okay, we'll crank up the temperature for you, and then every other person can get an extra blanket. Yes, so it helps. If the woman knows, okay, these are the things that can happen, and she can share that with her inner circle to support her through that period. Yeah.
Okay. Can you educate us a bit on perimenopause?
Okay, yeah. So perimenopause, it takes the different time lengths, the different duration for different women. It means that in that period, the ovary is not cycling regularly. So the menses doesn't come regularly. She may have a menses in January, nothing in February, nothing in March, and then April, maybe she went for a party and then it came and she's like, what kind of thing is this? Okay, she's ready in May and then nothing happens. Then she's like, okay, the last time there were 2 months in between, so maybe it's 2 months again, but this time 6 weeks down the line it shows up. So it's because there's a dysregulation in that cycling. The hormone levels are dropping, so it's not as it should be. So that's the one thing you will see, irregular cycles. The cycle length may shorten, or the cycle length may become longer than expected. Exactly. And sometimes too, those little symptoms of irritability and mood swings may begin to show up, but may not be as severe as when the menses finally stops, and then the full weight of the loss of hormone support is there.
Okay. Does menopause make women hungry and put on weight? Yeah.
No, so when women put on weight, or when anybody puts on weight, it means that they are taking in much more than their body is
Calories.
utilizing. Exactly. So yes, they may begin to eat more, because at that stage, either even if they've had children would most likely have grown up and left the house. So it's not like they have to cook for many people. So they may be able to snack, eat this, eat that. So what I usually tell my clients is that you have to also incorporate discipline. If it's the time where you have the latitude to eat as many things as you want to, you should also incorporate discipline in your portion sizes and discipline with exercise, so that you are not accumulating the weight that you cannot shed easily, because there's also the hormonal response that makes it much more difficult for women to shed that weight, even though it's much easier to gain the weight. So diet, exercise, one has to put in a lot of discipline, a lot of work when it comes to that. So it's not the menopause itself. It's just like there are some types of contraception that women have noticed makes them gain weight more than if they were using some other methods. And so for those women, if that is the best method of contraception for them, then they can use it, but then they have to, be disciplined with portion control, be disciplined with exercise, be disciplined, and then they can go on through their reproductive age group with that method that works best for them, as long as they've added discipline to it.
Okay. Thank you so much, Doctor. Before I take this question that is here by YDA, I want to please help to speak to mothers, maybe fathers here, because it's something that we observed with a lot of our teenagers. A lot of parents don't talk to their teenagers about, puberty, and this menstrual cycle. So a lot of children do not know the dangers of not having a regular menstrual cycle. Some don't even start late, and you ask them, do their parents, they say they don't know, but I know my mom followed me back to back, you understand? And she, every time she will be following, has he come, I knew the importance of, and they asked me, so I knew the importance. But nowadays, we find out that a lot of parents are not, I don't know, involved. I don't know what it is, so I just wanted you to mention it, because it's all in the same bucket, so that parents after now, those who are online, can understand that they need to start engaging,
Yes, ma, you're absolutely correct. So I think that these days our parents there were fewer ways for us to get that information if they didn't talk to us about it. We either would have to have gone to read our biology book, and if you hadn't gotten to the stage where you're reading biology, then you most likely would hear the wrong thing from somebody else rather than what is actually right. And that's why you have stories of, if you touch a boy, or if a boy sits on your chair, you'll get pregnant. So yes, parents have to be more involved in that education, that part of education. Some parents may find it difficult, but I believe that there are so many books these days that help to break it down in age. The word for it is age appropriate. So there are ways you can explain it to a 6-year-old. There are ways you can explain it to a 10-year-old. There are ways you will explain it to a 13, 14, 15, 16-year-old. And it's important because during the process of creation of a human being, there's the chance, or there's the risk for genetic errors. And so the child is born, but there is a genetic, born with an error. And menses is the marker that may actually be the first thing that will bring that child to the hospital. And it is during evaluation, you may be able to say, oh, something went wrong when this child was being created. And so therefore, this is why, you know, there are children that may have been reared as girls, and they've been reared as girls, and then at puberty, you know, 12 no menses, 13 no menses, 16 no menses, 17 no menses, 18 no menses, and then they come to the hospital. And then during evaluation, you find that they're genetic males, but something went wrong. So that kind of conversation has to be had with both the parents and that child, because you cannot rear the child as a male anymore. And there may be some things you may not be able to do. That child may need certain types of surgery to help them have some sense of quality of life. And of course, they should also know they will disclose to their future spouses, whatever their medical history is. So being able to realize that I need to know if this child has menstruated at the appropriate age may be the first thing that may bring the child and the parents to the doctors for a review. So it's very, very important. It's also important to talk to them that it's a normal process. We should talk to the boys as well, so it doesn't look like she has an injury. I was reading something recently that the lady the girl didn't know that it was menses. So she too was like, I don't know where I'm bleeding from. The blood is just, you know, so it was kind of strange. So yes, parents should talk to their kids about it. Even if you don't have daughters, you can talk to your sons so they know that, oh, and they may even, you know, be more sensitive and be able to also educate their friends who are boys about some
more
girls.
Empathetic.
Yes, exactly. That's the word, empathetic about it. So it's important that we do keep an eye out on our daughters to know at what age they started their menses, how is it in the first few years of menarche is the first menses. In the first 2-3 years, the menses may not be regular, and that's normal because the brain is just getting to firing those hormones. So it may come once, not come 2 months, not come 3 months. But after about 2-3 years, they begin to have regular cycles. So yes, if it's not regular the first 2-3 years, it's normal. However, there are also issues that may prompt the girl to need to see the gynecologist. If it's too heavy, if it's prolonged, if the pain associated with it is too much, you can't explain how that amount of crippling pain is related to menses. Yes, she needs to see the doctor, because there are some disease entities we used to think affected, you know, much older women that we're beginning to see in younger girls now. And the earlier we make that diagnosis, the earlier we can start them on the treatments to make sure that they have better reproductive health as they grow older. I hope I answered your question without sounding too much like
yes. No, yes, you did. Okay, so let's go to YDA's question. Please, how do you explain a situation where a woman who is 55 and never been married is still having her periods? Is it possible that it's because she has never had a child that makes her hormones still to be active?
No, so the hormones are just her hormones. She may have a genetic reason why her menses hasn't stopped. Some women will menstruate until they are 60. And if you do ask them for their family history, you'll find out either their sister is that way or their mother was that way. Just like some women will stop menstruating at 45. So there are some, for those kind of people, there's usually a genetic reason, unless they are taking hormones. If they are ingesting hormones in one way or the other, either in their food, their supplements, or in their cream or whatever. If it's none of that, then there is a genetic explanation for it. As long as she's menstruating, there's nothing wrong with it. It doesn't have anything to do with that her womb hasn't carried a pregnancy before. If it's normal, it occurs at a predictable cycle, is not excessive, there's no pain, there's, nothing that alarms her, then she can just wait it out. The period will stop when it should stop, as God has directed it to.
Okay, thank you so much. Now, I know someone that gave birth at 62 through IVF. Does it mean that IVF can still be effective after menopause?
Yes, IVF can be effective at any age. The reason we have guidelines is that it helps to know, to wait. So there are certain principles in medicine. Do no harm, first of all. And then you also have to weigh the risk and the benefits. There are certain reasons why some interventions will not be ideal at certain age groups. It's just like if a candidate for pilot school shows up for pilot training, and then they ask him, oh, what are you here for? He said, oh, I'm here to train as a pilot. And then they ask, how old are you? And he says, oh, I just turned 72. I have a thigh fracture. I walk with walking stick. My eyesight is a bit, shady. Sometimes I see men as trees. I'm sure nobody needs any prophets. Exactly. So sometimes when you look at the person who wants to have children, you have to weigh what is the benefit of this treatment to this person at this stage. It's not like you're playing God, but you also have to know that your training, your skill, your knowledge should not put the person in a worse off state because of what they want to achieve. Yes. So sometimes we'll decline some kind of treatment based on some of those things. So at 62, the woman could have done her IVF. I'm not sure who did it, where they did it, what guidelines operate where they did it, because even in the Western world, there are some treatments that you won't get, no matter how rich you are. You won't get it on the books. Unless you get it under the books, you won't get it, because the guidelines have said, oh, at this stage, the risk outweigh the benefits. And so anybody who is offering that would be doing it, staking themselves and say, oh, I chose to do the exactly. So
okay. Thank you. I think we have a last question. Some women say they are not interested in intimacy during pre and post menopause. How will the husband cope?
Okay. So there's a reason for it. Estrogen is the female hormone. It is what makes a woman a woman. It is what is responsible for the growth of the breast. It's what is responsible for the hips, the deposition, the female figure, the way the fat tissue and all of that is deposited in that female figure. Estrogen is responsible for that. Estrogen is also responsible for the vaginal health, the secretions, that is what, and at that stage, when estrogen is low, the vagina is dry. It's difficult to achieve sexual intercourse with dry vagina, and the woman is not. So in that instance, they can compromise. Either you use estrogen vaginal creams to improve on, or how will I put it now, to rejuvenate the vagina to what it was in the younger years, or use lubricants, so it's not, yes, the libido will drop, but it's not that the couple cannot compromise on what can be done. Yes, so I hope I've been able to answer that. And the husband can hug his wife.
Yes, and again, when they communicate and they talk about it, I believe that the husband, our fathers, very how will I say it, understanding fathers and husbands, will understand and, like you said, compromise. Thank you so much. Any other questions for Dr. Aderonmu before we allow her to go? No more questions. Doctor, thank you so much. Can we thank Doctor in our House of Saviors way? Let me see your claps and fire emojis to thank Dr. Aderonmu. She has done over justice to this topic. Thank you so much, Doctor. We are grateful. I'm not yet there, but you have prepared me, you know.
That's the idea. Thank you so much.
You know, thank you very much. And of course, I understand when I look at some women that are a little older than me and they are cranky, they're irritable. Now I can understand that
exactly.
this person may be, you know. Thank you so much. We appreciate you. Thank you very much. And we know if we call on you again, you'll be willing to,
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Ms. Lawrence, for following up as well. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to share with the house.
Thank you so much. I don't learn a lot as a man. Yes, it's for men. It's your day. We are here to feed you, especially that last question. You know, where, you know, for those who have older women, that last question, for men, it was for you guys. It's your day. We are still celebrating fathers. Okay, thank you, Doctor. Thank you so much. So House of Saviors, thank you for today's session. I'm sure we've had a very, very fantastic session. We've learned a lot. I've learned a lot, you know, as well. But before we go, finally, let us remind ourselves about, so we have some